This is Straight Talk with Atlanta native Greg Penn, the Preacher Man, and his sidekick Shannon Jones. Frank discussions of issues affecting the ATL, Fulton County, the state of Georgia, the nation, and around the world. And now, here they are, live and in living color, the team of Jones and Fan, the Preacher Man.
Welcome to Straight Talk with yours truly, Greg Fan, the Preacher Man, and I got my co-host Shannon E. Jones. What's up, Shannon?
Man, if I wasn't a better idea.
You know what?
That's all I keep saying.
The day.
Man, you coordinated.
Thank you so very much.
Now wait a minute, you got on purple shoes.
Woo,
purple
hallelujah,
socks. Got a little purple line running through you.
Hallelujah.
Jeans look like the jeans been in the
yeah, they start. Yes, they start.
Starch.
They start.
You put them in the cleaner.
Yes, sir.
Look like the China man got to him. And then you got the shirt on.
Well, he's always been a fashionista.
Clean.
Fashionista.
Well,
Washington High School.
I'm happy you took
Washington High.
Be careful now. This is a Washington High. This is a Washington High graduate.
He's all dressed up and down. Look
Coordinate.
Look at him
Coordinate. But I'm happy you took off that old Pittsburgh Steelers watch. That thing was putting a hurting on my eye.
Well, I'm gonna put it like this, man. They're gonna put a hurting.
It stopped working.
They're gonna put a hurting on your family. It stopped working. They're gonna put a hurting on your family. They're gonna put a hurting on the roster. And you know, Shannon's middle initial, guys, is E. Shannon E. Jones. Okay. And the E today stands for early. He was early. He was early. But I'm glad today to have with us again. This is the second half of we did the first half, and we'll have Sam on the second half to talk more about things that he's going to share with us about his role in social justice and what's happening with social justice today. James Davenport, who is a Atlanta native, grew up on the west side, went to White High School. I've been knowing James ever since James was a little boy. And when I say a little boy, because he's much younger than I am.
Really?
Because he's much younger than he is. His uncle and aunt and all of them my age. But we stayed kind of like in the same neighborhood around the corner from each other. Instead of about Washington Park or Olive Street Wide, it's no longer in existence anymore there. And our neighborhood has really transitioned. The neighborhood we grew up in, it really has transitioned, because when we look at Atlanta, and Sam, you can relate to this. I'm sure you can. Shannon is much younger than us, but Atlanta, we had two communities that were really our economic engine for black businesses. Mm-hmm. When they talk about Black Business Month and black business, they're promoting black businesses this month. But we had Hunter Street, which is now Martin Luther King, and then we had Auburn Avenue. Those were the areas where black folks prospered. We had our own theater. We had our own grocery store. We had our own jewelry store. We had our own dairy pharmacy. We had Till and Dennis.
All the clubs.
We had everything that you needed right there on Hunter Street in terms of for black folks to go. Our theater, we went to that theater religiously, Ashford Street Theater. So we had the park. It was just, everything was right there in the community, and it was maintained and controlled by black folks. Pastor Brothers. You know, we had Cooper Brothers had a service station. They had a service station up there. Busy Bee is still there. Yeah. They had the Gulf Service. You got D&W restaurant. And Busy Bee is one of the main stellars still that's there in the community that was there. You had Frazier, and we had a record shop.
And not too far away, you had Wheat Street.
Wheat Street was on the other side. They were on the other side. They were there in the Auburn Avenue side, which was the other black community with business. So we thrived there. West Hunter was there. The church I grew up in, 775 Hunter Street, that old West Hunter Street Baptist Church. And then you had the colleges there. Yeah, that's right. You know, you had the AU Center there, and that's where a lot of black people who are professionals now came from at the AU Center.
Well, and you also had Gammon Theological Seminary.
Yeah, the seminary.
That goes all the way back to the 1880s. Right. Can I say something about that historically? Sure. The only reason Atlanta was able to get the middle class that we saw, I was trying to figure out what made Atlanta different than Birmingham, what made Atlanta different than any other place in the country. And I found out that it's, no, it wasn't intelligentsia. It was part intelligentsia because they had the only master's program in the country for 40 years at Gammon.
Right.
Gammon Theological and AU Center. And the one was for preachers. All the preachers in the country came to Gammon.
Right.
And got their masters. And all of the intellectuals came to the AU Center to get the master. You couldn't get down at no other institution other than the AU Center, a couple of institutions up north. They let you in every once in a while up there. Well, 1806 rolled around. These things have been in place since the 1860s. 1806 rolled around, and white folks said, you Negroes done got out of control in Atlanta. Y'all got pianos and shopping in Paris. We don't like that. And y'all, them preachers over there hollering and slobbing and learning how to research and do everything out of that AU Center in Gammon. We're going to stop it all. So they advertised in the newspaper, New York Times, Atlanta Journal-Constitution, that we're going to have a race ride in Atlanta. Advertised for 3 or 4 weeks now. So folk from California, New York, everywhere, gathered up and came to Atlanta to burn Clark, AU Center, the AU, Atlanta University, and Gammon. Burn them. Where were they at? Where were they located physically? They weren't located downtown then. They were located at the top of Capitol Avenue, right, up there where Carver High School is now. That used to be Gammon Theological Seminary on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side was Clark High School. That's before Washington came. Right. Clark was a high school you had to pay to go to, because public school only went to the 8th grade. And then if you want to go to high school, you had to come to Atlanta to go to go to Clark High School and pay. Clark College was there, and the AU Center. That's where W.E.B. Du Bois taught, and all of the black intellectuals, not just one. He wasn't the only one. It was a whole bunch of black intellectuals. We just don't know their name now. Right. But their name was Murray. All them streets in South Atlanta, right there off Jonesboro Road, named after the doctors of the AU Center from the 1860s and 70s. Well, they came and put the race ride together in 1806. Came to burn the AU Center in Gammon because he'd been preaching. He'd been producing them preachers and producing them educational intellects and all. You gotta get rid of them. So they came down here, but they forgot one thing, Jane. You know what they forgot? 300,000 black men had fought in the Civil War. They had forgot that. They forgot that another million had fought in World War I. They forgot that. And back then, you could take your gun home. And so when they came to Atlanta, Greg Finn, this is why Atlanta was able to get the middle class. They came down there, and the old people, I was talking to one about darn near 100 years old, she said, when they got to that T right there where the railroad is, at the top of Capitol Avenue, look, there's 5 points. It really wasn't one of the 5 points that used to be. Jonesboro Road, McDonough, and right there. That used to be the depot for the black folk. Used to be the depot for the black folk. They said when the white folk came up Capitol Avenue and up McDaniel Street to burn them at Clark and the AU Center, that the black folk opened up on them like it was World War II. And I'm going to tell you this right here, fan. Let me whisper this to you on your program. They say that a lot of dead white folk were buried in Carver Home down there, because Carver Home used to be woods and stuff before they built projects over it. They also say there were 300 to 400 white folk were killed over the next 3-4 days in the race ride in Atlanta. Now, the official record says 14 black men got killed. But the Negro record say 300 or 400 white folk got killed And them white folks said, the niggas down there too mean to fight with. We need to be too busy to hate.
That's where they came with the story.
That's where it came from.
Atlanta
That's where it
too
came
busy.
from. That's where it came from. I ain't playing now. That's where the theme came from. 1806 race riot. Atlanta is too busy to hate. That's where it came from. You got to understand.
So
They decided that they would
to do with that saying.
They had no, it didn't. No, it didn't.
Actually,
It was
that
long
saying,
before him.
only the one they really said that had that saying was Ivan Allen, because
That's right, but he knew.
Ivan Allen said Atlanta is a city too busy to hate.
Yeah, I know he said it because he knew about the 1806 riot.
Right.
Now, all of them knew about it except y'all.
Right.
They told us a lie about it.
Right.
And the folk, they always lying to us about something. And then we don't know how the foundation gets started.
Right.
So therefore, we forgot that it started in the violence the white folk brought against us in Atlanta. Same thing happened in Charlotte, in Durham. That's how they got their middle class.
Right.
So they second to Atlanta for the kind of middle class processing for the same reason.
So was this a kind of reset today? Because we got Black Wall Street too in Tulsa.
Oh, that was later. That was later. That's 1920s and 19.
But was
That's
that
after World War
is that
I.
the way that they did a reset?
Yeah, they were always resetting. See, when you start studying history, you start finding out that I don't mean you start finding out that black folks,
because we coming on this
black folks
Yeah.
followed the Indian trying to get away from white folk. So we used to start communities over yonder in the woods trying to get away from them. We were behind the Indians we hid.
Right.
For about 400 years, when you run away, you couldn't run away north because they were little bitty towns then. So you ran away to be behind the Indians. Well, Michael Thurman just wrote a book about 10 years ago about that and told them that the Underground Railroad ran south to Florida for a long time because the Spanish had Florida and they didn't have slavery in Florida. So black folks used to run away from Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, run into Florida and get behind the Indians. The Indians killed all the white folk who came. Black folk did all the farming for 120 years down the Apalachicola River. And that's how we got a different kind of black folk out of Florida. And that's how we get James Weldon Johnson later on out of the Duval County, Jacksonville. He won't sing that song, the Black National Anthem. That's how he wrote it. That's how he wrote it, because he came from a long history of free black folk who had run away and got away. But that's how we got to be a city too busy to hate. That's how we got to be the middle class, the white folks society. We ain't coming back down there where y'all at, fan, because it's dangerous down there where y'all from. We ain't going down there no race rides no more, because we're gonna kill 400-500 folk down here. We ain't gonna have that no more. So what we're gonna do in Atlanta is we're gonna negotiate. Right now, still have a meeting with the big Negroes, you know. They still meet with the big white folks and discuss what they're gonna do in Atlanta. They have a lot less discussions now than they used to have when Ivan Allen and Sam Mosteller and all them were around, Maynard Jackson and them were around, because they understood. We don't understand. And what we've done is petered away our power to negotiate, forgetting that we're a city too busy to hate, and we don't know why we were a city too busy to hate.
Well, I appreciate that. We appreciate the information, appreciate that history. But I'm going back to Hunter Street.
All right, go on back to Hunter.
I want to go back over here to James. James is very much an activist and standing up for issues and standing up on this gun violence and the things that we're seeing in our community today. And James is working toward doing something and bringing people together, you said, Sam, together in our community. You know, Atlanta has always been this kind of community that I grew up in, the community that I grew up in, that we were always together. And whatever the issue was, we were always together. But it seemed that there's a divide now, and we're not really together on things that affect our community. When I say our community, I mean overall community. I'm not talking about Hunter Street community. I'm not talking about Eagle Homes or Boeing Homes or Carver Homes or Capitol Home. I mean, those areas, East Lake Meadows, those areas. We were a community where black folks when we stood up, that when James Brown wrote the song and said, I'm black
And I'm
proud. I'm black and I'm proud. So
Say
I'm
it
proud.
loud.
I say it loud. So I'm proud of this young man
Yeah.
and what he's doing and continuously doing and standing up. And he was sharing something with me the other day, James. I just want to share a little bit of what you shared with me about a part of your driver was that he had people in his family that had mental illness.
Yeah.
And this mental illness is really a problem in our community today.
Yep.
And so, Jay, I'm going to turn it over to you so you can just share where you are and just what you're planning and proposing that we do.
Okay, as I always say, first giving honor to God, who I oftentimes call my conductor. I don't have a PhD, but I do have a GOD.
Yes, sir.
That being said, I am the president and founder of the Hit and Run Help Foundation.
Hit and Run.
Bishop, as you know, that is based on my brother being killed in hit and run pedestrian fatality. In June 2017, his first son took his own life. January 1, 2019, his second and last son took his own life.
Whoa.
And Bishop, that you said that a couple of months ago, and I'm talking to my primary care doctor, and I'm talking about this hat that I'm wearing, and he said, Mr. Davenport, I'm going to tell you, that is a common thing now for when a child witnessed a parent suffering a traumatic loss, just like somebody taking their life. Once they become older, adulthood, they take their own life. And which brings me to the situation that happened a couple of weeks ago. We attended Brittany Greer's celebration. Reverend Shannon Jones officiated excellently. And as we dispersed, went to the rally at Liberty Plaza, we, Gerald Griggs, Portia, TQ, a couple of NAACP members in the parking lot. And all of a sudden, Attorney Griggs said, I got to go. I'll meet y'all on the university. There's been a shooting. What happened was, a young man, Maurice Brantley, he was in a high-speed chase with the police. As he said, they did a pit maneuver. He crashed the car, shot himself in the head. Now, you may have seen on the news that story, but there are three parts to that story. And I happen to know this information because as we were there, Attorney Griggs and us, we were talking to the police, and we just so happened to be in the midst of the family. And I recognized one of the family members who was a spokesperson at that time. There might have been about 30 to 40 police cars, two different neighborhoods gathered around. And they began to tell us that 3 days prior to this event, that young man went to the police, told them he needed help. He was suffering a mental health crisis. He had a gun with him. Instead of them taking him to Grady or the crisis center, they took him to jail, only to let him out the very next day. The next day, he shot and killed his wife. The very next day, he was going to his wife's family to let them know how sorry he was, and he was going to do whatever was necessary, but in the process, he was chased by the police. And this is what ended up in the high-speed chase and ended up killing himself. And yes, Bishop, you're right. This mental health crisis is rampant, and it reminded me of both my nephews. The first one, when he started acting out, the very first thing he said, I'm going to get a gun and I'm going to kill the person who killed my daddy. All of a sudden he snapped. He just started going through some things. And ultimately, his mother was taking him to Grady for an evaluation. Wow, this sounds so familiar. And as she was taking him to Grady, she works in security. She had on a service revolver. She forgot, had to take it back to the car. As she was taking it to the car, put it in the glove compartment, he snatched the gun, ran up toward Georgia State, shot himself, took his life. So the other son, the indicator for him was one night around midnight that he was standing in the middle of Memorial Drive, Stone Mountain, asking people to take his life. So he ended up ultimately hanging himself. So this mental health issue is really a problem in our community. And Bishop, I'm very concerned. I am wondering, how did we get to the point that we have so many people who have this mental health condition? Where did this come from? I'm just curious. You know, I do know we always had situations where people were actually, well, we used to say they'd put them in the institute, graded the 8th floor or whatever, until Ronald Reagan. Milledgeville, that's it. That's it. And until Ronald Reagan came and said, no, let's put them all out on the street. Put them all out on the street.
And lock them up in jail.
Yeah. But now we see so many, you know, and it's hard to it's hard to pinpoint where all this came from.
Let me just say this: this is an issue that we must address. Sean Garvey, who comes on every Monday with Mental Health Space, and Sean is going to be on a program that we have with Dr. Epps and her group. They deal with dementia and mental health. Dementia and mental health, they're closely related. People don't put the two together, but they're closely related. So we're going to have a forum on the 22nd with the South Florida Ministry Alliance to deal with this. When Senator Warnock was at Morehouse, and we were people were asking questions about, you know, what's going on, what's happening in the money program, and I raised the issue about mental health and monies, because they were saying that he was saying that there was going to be monies for mental health as these kids in school and stuff like that. So I said, what about other mental health? And he said, oh, that money is going to be used for other things for mental health. We have just yesterday, other day at Fulton County, you were there, when we talked about the issue of the jails. Jails are overcrowded because they got many people in there who got mental health conditions, and they have no place for them to go. Because Georgia Regional is not taking them because they overstocked. Grade is not taking them, they overloaded. So we have to create more mental institutions for people who have mental health. I pass people all the time. You do, we all do. They sit on the street just talking to themselves and they're having conversation. But nobody is, there's not enough emphasis on getting mental health. Like you said, Reagan loosed them in the street, and now they're in the street. But there are people who need to be on medication, who need help because they have a chemical imbalance. Well, and what's the thing said it best? I think he said, one of the singers said, and y'all, these R&B guys, they know about who said that. There's a thin line between love and more straight talk after news and information with Miss C.
Hi, Miss C here with your 3-minute news blast. Come out to plan, prepare, and praise at Labor in the Pulpit 2022, winning the future with labor, faith, and community. Thursday, September 1st, 2022, beginning at 11 a.m. at Liberty International Church, 1362 Metropolitan Parkway in Southwest Atlanta. Liberty International Church also invites you to help them celebrate the 42nd anniversary of their overseer, Bishop Greg Fan. That's Sunday, August 21st at 2 p.m. with Bishop Aaron Lackey as guest speaker. Flipper Temple AME Church at 580 Atlanta Student Movement Boulevard in Southwest Atlanta will celebrate Women's Day September 25th. Many activities have been planned. Reverend Gregory Easton is pastor. Now, listen, we'd be happy to announce your event. It could be a reunion, whatever. We'd be happy to announce it. You just send it to us at Straight Talk News 1362 at gmail.com. That's Straight Talk News 1362 at gmail.com. And listen, we ask that you subscribe. We ask that you like us. Right there on the screen, there are those little buttons that you push, and we ask that you leave comments and that you share this broadcast. We would certainly appreciate it, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day.
Thanks, Cynthia. Now back to our interview with the Reverend Samuel Mosteller and James Davenport. But there's a thin line between sanity and insanity too. It is. It
There's
really is.
another trend happening now also with young black men. We're noticing that around the age between 23 and 27 years old, they're starting to develop bipolar and schizophrenia.
It's mental health.
So we're starting to notice that in our community. But you asked the question, why is this happening? And I don't know if you meant now or in general, why have we always had it? But I really think that a lot of it has to do with the black family and the black, when we say the black faith community, really the black church. I think the black church has suffered a mental health issue, and it's moved into an identity crisis in terms of how do we define ourselves to relate to modernity? How do we become relevant when the black church was always relevant? Because it was the catalyst that redeemed that sought to redeem the soul of people in order to redeem the soul of community, in order to redeem the soul of America and the world. The black church, Bonhoeffer came from Europe to study and to sit in the black church and to get to learn the authentic spirit of the black church. We talked about in another segment that you're black, that you're African, but then you God's people too, that God speaks to you. And there's in Chronicles this little piece of scripture, they call it a pericope of scripture, where the Lord says, if my people who are called by my name would humble themselves and pray, right? Seek my face, turn from your wicked ways, right? Then I will hear. So because the black church has suffered this crisis, and so I've gone back to, because I'm a church planner, come out of the traditional church setting, come out of the black nationalist movement, and so I'm sitting here in the church now, and I'm looking at all of this, and I'm reading all this material, and I'm throwing it all out. I'm going back to the traditional black church.
There's a warfare. There was warfare that was declared on the black church in '68. It's part of COINTELPRO. And they sealed COINTELPRO. George Bush sealed it for another 50 years. So you'll never see what the intent was. But the
president who was a CIA director.
Yeah, but CIA was a lot weaker than it was J. Edgar Hoover, who was doing all the dirt at that time. And he was a mulatto out of New Orleans, and he just hated his color, hated being a colored person. And so he attacked black folk, number one. And he was the one behind COINTELPRO. COINTELPRO was actively killing black leadership. They sent redneck white police officers from the South all over the country and all over the world to kill black leadership. We were around then, and we didn't know what was going on, but they were being targeted and killed and jailed all over America at the same time. That's COINTELPRO. So, but what we didn't get was the church was put under warfare. What was the warfare with church? Warfare with church came out of the evangelical movement for white folk, not Southern Baptists. But Southern Baptists and United Methodists were involved, but at a lesser level. Because what they were told to do was to evangelize the black community. The Southern Baptists sent black men and white and black preachers into the black community to come and preach in Southern Baptist churches and have a Southern Baptist congregation that reported to the Southern Baptist. And then the same thing happened to the United Methodists. Warfare, part of COINTELPRO. They were funded to do this now. Government funded to do it. Now, What happened with the evangelicals? The evangelicals said, we are going to pick somebody that's 20 years old, black preacher. And we're going to give them a stadium-sized church all over the country. We give them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. We picked them, and we're going to put them up. What does the stadium-like church do? It makes spectators out of people who's supposed to be deacons and trustees and ministers, and got them on the 40th row, back up yonder.
Waiting for the curtain to open.
Just spectate. When they're supposed to be in the community.
Be in the church.
Be in the community and the church. See, there was no separation between church and community. And leadership.
They were one.
Yeah, leadership in the church was leadership in the community. And leadership in the community was leadership in the church. Not only that, they were leadership in the school and the church and the community all at the same time. They were the same people.
All the same.
Yeah, now we got folks over in the school. They ain't got nothing to do with the church.
All the community.
And then we got folk in the community, they ain't got nothing to do with the church. Then we got folk in the church, ain't got nothing to do with the school or community. Then we say they separated. Well, yeah, we separated because policy and dollars planted in our community separated us because we didn't have nothing before. It's easy to buy me. You can buy a Negro for $1,500.
Lord have mercy.
So who suffers? So who suffers in that?
All everybody from elderly down to the next child is born.
So when the black church
and the school
when the black church departs from this notion of no separation between
school,
between
school,
the sacred and the secular, no separation, which is deeply African. So when that has happened, then who's training and teaching the black father? My grandmother learned what she learned by the church mothers, who were also the teachers, as you said, who were also leaders in their community, and they passed on the wisdom.
Okay.
My grandfather learned from the deacons and the pastors and the community leaders, but the church fathers.
This young man right here just said, I don't have a PhD, I got a GOD. Now, most of the folk who ran the church ain't been to nobody's school.
No school.
Ain't went to no school. Only thing they knew was prayer.
That's right.
They knew
and the power of God.
And they knew the power of God.
That's it.
Everywhere. That's all they knew.
That's all they knew.
And they didn't care nothing about what you said.
Right.
I come back from college and try to talk intellectual all I want to.
Yeah.
It ain't got nothing to do with how we going to run this community.
Absolutely.
We're going to run this community because you're a liar, and we're going to stop you from lying.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to stop you from stealing now. We're going to tell you, don't be stealing no from Miss Ann over there now. We're telling you. The men got together, went on and told him, stop now, you're going to stop stealing.
Well, see, to your point is that we patrolled our own community.
That's right.
That's what that was the point.
That's what he was making.
We control our own community, but we don't control our own community now because the community, as you just said, the church, the community, the church, and the school have been separated because those are the three pillars of our community.
Yeah.
So when you separate us, then you end up with the issue of mental illness because nobody is paying attention to the things, the hurts, the pains, because the church has now become that place that you come to that is a place to be entertained. The songs that they sing, there's no more pass me not, oh gentle say. There's no more precious Lord, what a friend. There's no more, there's no more lifting hymns and songs that minister to you. These are songs that make you want to jump, make you want to run and move, just like you at the party or party somewhere. Turn the blue lights on in the basement.
Well, now watch this. But again, but one of the things that went along with no PhD but GOD was the oral tradition. This was the strongest one that we had. First, we had the griots in Africa.
Right.
That wandered from place to place. That was the smartest folk we had. Actually, they were educated people who made sure everybody was online all over the world, the African world. the griots. They traveled back and forth with that stick. They were prophet, they were old men wearing beard and stuff, well respected. That's how we ended up with the evangelists and all that stuff. Right. Well, the oral tradition was borrowed by the other folk I was telling you about earlier and given over to teenagers. They 12 and 14 years old, trying to cuss, trying to figure out who they are, and yet they're going to tell you who they are, and they ain't even learned. Matter of fact, their brain ain't even formed, because they ain't old enough for the brain to form.
He talking about you a little bit.
Wrong. The brain don't form.
My prefrontal cortex is 25.
You know what I'm talking about.
25.
Well, you know, at 25.
At 25.
Yeah, that's right. When you get 25, you kind of get some sense. Kind of get some sense by 25 if you got the oral griot and the oral tradition. If you can respect that.
Right.
But see, what happened was they separated us from the oral tradition and put it into hip hop. Now, it ain't because hip hop is bad. It's because they control it.
Right.
That's our problem. It's our oral tradition.
Right.
It's our little bitty folk who without a form brain who doing it. And they're not listening to the people who know God and have lived long enough
to understand.
Well, this is the key now. I'm going to tell you this right now. There's a level in faith. I've watched it long enough to know. I just coined this phrase. Y'all can borrow it and use it anytime you want to. It's called no soul.
No soul.
No soul. When my grandmama said something, she didn't repeat that.
That was it.
She didn't go around trying to tell you what God told her or do nothing like that. She would say, boy, and the Lord told me last night so and so and so. And that's it. And all you have to do is wait.
And there it is.
Yeah, here it comes, just like she said. No so.
Because she knows something.
She been living long enough to know so.
No so.
And she ain't scared to tell white folk, the Ku Klux Klan, the police,
Nobody
the judge, nobody.
I know so.
Because she got the word.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's what we're talking about when you say, I got the word, I got the word. Well, you didn't get it from me because I ain't got enough power in my word to make you stand up. But with the word my grandmama got was powerful enough to make her where she can walk in and tell the Ku Klux Klan to put the gun down, and they had to do it.
Well, see, the other issue, known as you, James, the other issue is that she had,
we're going
you
to do
said
a third
it better.
segment.
Yeah, you said it because you said something that is very, very relevant. Age and time come with wisdom.
If you learn it right,
and time comes with wisdom.
If you learn it right,
if you pay attention to the signs, and as you were just talking about, and I'm going to turn it over to you, as you were talking about the formulation of the brain, look at how people are driving now. Just look how people are driving.
Great.
I mean, they're passing you now on the left side of the road, facing oncoming traffic, as opposed to passing cars on the right side of the road, away from oncoming traffic. So that shows you their brain are developed because they can distinguish from the left to the right that traffic is going to be coming this way. You headed toward oncoming traffic.
I thought it was all that loud they smoke.
I don't know about the loud or whatever. I think
loud.
what it is. I'm tell you what it. I tell you what I think it is. It is. Let me want to turn it.
Development.
I think it is that they have not developed because they listen to get that booty, that nigga.
Yeah.
See, we came up with the kind of music with love and happiness and
family
and friends.
What's going on?
What's going on? I mean, we came up with those kinds of songs that ministered to us, even though they were R&B songs.
Yeah.
Because most of the people who sung R&B came out of church. They came out of church. Yeah. These folks who are singing these songs now, they ain't been to no church.
They haven't been.
They ain't been to no church.
You talk to them about church, they think you've been cussed
generation.
out.
A soulless generation.
They think they've been cussed out when you tell them to go to church.
Yeah,
A soulless generation.
A soulless generation.
Well, they think it's a scam. The church is a scam at this stage and point.
Which is a plot.
Most of the people who are undeveloped.
We don't want to leave him out.
I'm sorry.
He asked his question, and we don't turn that.
As one of your last statements was, put the guns down. And I honestly feel, and I talked to you, Bishop, and Reverend Jones, the governor has, whether people know it or not, has afforded us an opportunity for the regathering. Okay? And as I mentioned to you, there are two things we need to do. We need to get the churches and the advocates together to form this massive protest against the governor and this stupid gun law. And we're going to have to do it in phases, but ultimately, it's leading to get out the vote. Okay? Now, some people, especially in my community, thinks that, I had this idea once the manager of Cause Spirit High Rise was killed. No, I had announced on the Richard Show a month ago that I was planning a rally against the governor for this stupid gun law. And it just so happened that not only these young people who has this niche for handling a gun, but it's affecting the mental health also. People who have no business with a gun or a knife in their hand. And mention knife, Bishop, you were talking the other day about where we grew up at, First black public high school in the Southeast Washington High School, the first black park in Atlanta, Washington Park. Well, Bishop, you were saying that, back in the day, when people would fight, they use a knife in the end.
Or fist.
Or fist. And now they use guns. So, what I'm proposing is that and I doubt if, I'm not going to say they won't, but nobody should refuse, no black people should refuse this opportunity to gather all churches. Let's get together because it's affecting all of us. And this law was designed to get rid of us. It was one of the reasons one of the ways they're going to try to get rid of us, gentrification. And I've been telling people for over 10 years, these white folk trying to push us out to sea, and they're systematically doing it in different ways. Housing and guns. All over the country, housing and guns. And it's working, and a lot of people are not seeing the effects, but as I tell people now, wait till the end of the year. You're going to see more homeless employed people than ever before. And not only blacks, you're going to see some white folk. And
not just some, a lot of them.
Yeah. And what people don't understand is what the white man would do. He would sacrifice a few white for a lot of black. So that's how it's going to happen. A lot of white folk going to suffer too. But we really need to come together to combat the governor on this issue. And everybody, we say the governor, but yeah, they passed down legislation for him to sign it, but that was in his platform. That was in his platform,
Sure
and that's how they
well, he started out with a gun. He started out with a gun.
On television, pointing the gun at the boy that's in the crossing, So we need to do this. And we need to do it, like a friend of mine said, quick, fast, and in a hurry. Because we have, we don't even have 90 days left now. Until
80-something days out.
November 2nd, Tuesday,
right. So we need to put out a call, and every church you can think of, put out a call. We need to save ourselves.
Well,
we got to save ourselves.
We got a challenge. Inside the church is not as powerful as what we used to have with the deacon boards and mothers boards and members of the church with full strength. Right now, they pulling on the pastor just about for almost everything in the church, while the rest of them spectating in the mega churches, the small churches struggling to survive. So you asking the small church to come out because the mega churches can't come out because they financed by somebody else. They can't come. Well, you go ask them to come. They can't come and see you.
I think they can, and I think they have to, because they too are losing.
You ain't
and they
understanding.
too are affected by this.
You're not understanding. You're not understanding the process. If you work for me and I pay your salary, you ain't going nowhere but what I tell you to do. If you do, I'll get me another Negro. And that's what they know. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You go ask them, they're going to say, no, I don't even want to talk about it. The reason they can't talk about it is they on the employment rolls of another people.
Well, let me say
that's
this.
What you must understand.
Let me say this, and we were on the menthol ban issue, and we saw that they were criminalizing 86% of all black smokers smoke menthol cigarettes.
Right.
We were not promoting cigarettes.
Right.
We were going against mass incarceration, and where this is getting ready to go. If they ban those, water boys will be selling menthol cigarettes, and which is federally licensed and taxable.
Right.
So now they would have a felony. So we went and we said this is a no-brainer. I mean, once we help preachers understand we're not promoting smoking.
Right.
We're just trying to stop what the FDA is getting ready to do, because this is getting ready. They decriminalizing marijuana that's being sold in our community. You smell it everywhere you go, and now they're getting ready to criminalize menthol cigarettes,
which is what they've been selling.
Which is what they've been selling, and which is legal. And they're saying, well, it's a flavor. It's not a flavor. It's a brand, and people have been smoking it for. And 86% of all black smokers smoke it, all right?
Well, that's because
18 million people are smokers. So we went to your point.
Mm-hmm.
I ain't gonna call no names.
I ain't calling no names either.
But we reached out to some mega preachers.
That's right. That's all you got to do.
And began to let them see how this will be a mega problem.
Right.
In their mega church.
Right.
With their mega membership.
Oh, yes, sir.
And it'll be mega incarceration, and you're gonna lose mega influence, mega members, mega dollars, mega everything. And they couldn't touch it. They couldn't see. Now they can intellectualize. They can tell you the hermeneutic of this, that, and I mean, they can break it all down. They can exegete and eisegete and everything. But they, for some reason, they would not understand this. Now they say, no, well, we're doing a health program, or we can't touch this. We said, we ain't talking about cigarettes. Get rid of all cigarettes. We talk about they targeting the cigarettes that black people smoke, and they getting ready to criminalize black folk on this issue, and we couldn't get them to see it.
So they saw.
We couldn't get them officially.
You couldn't get them to
act. Put it in quotes.
You couldn't get them to act.
We couldn't get them to see it, to act.
That's right.
To do. And what a lot of it might be, and I'm gonna say might be, is that a lot of these megas may be mega financed or mega or some kind of way
employed,
some kind of way, indirectly, directly,
both,
mega influenced,
both,
by people whose agenda is not necessarily a healthy agenda
for our community. That's right.
So let's do this.
And ain't saying it's impossible, bro, James.
Thank you.
Well, now, right? Ain't nothing impossible with God.
See, I'm that believer. That word you just said.
I'm not giving you the naysayer.
Okay.
All I'm doing is pointing out, as a strategist, you got to know the opposition you're dealing with. Now, if you go and jump on the mega minister, and he or she cannot affect even their congregation, except somebody say it's all right over here, then you, in the fight, need to do what? Not go deal with the mega minister.
Just keep organizing.
But you need to start dealing with the folk who making a phone call, calling to them.
Well, you just made a point, and immediately what came to my mind, and you were standing with her on yesterday. Yeah. And I just found out this person was a member of one of the mega churches, Queen Portia Miller. The Queen of the Bullhorn. Mm-hmm. Okay, we rub elbows together. I have a phone number. Anytime they're protesting, I found out, and I'm there. Right. You know, and they know, Mr. James, I'm there. No matter how I'm gonna get there, I'm there. That is what I was thinking, because we have a lot of young activists in not only the small church but the large church. And I am convinced she is one to actually plant a seed at New Birth. and get what the bishop name? He's
You know,
from
Brian.
Baltimore.
Brian. Jamal Brian.
I'm convinced that she is one person who can actually ignite that fire. And you have them in other churches. And Bishop, you and Reverend Jones, you all affiliated with activist groups. And this is my purpose, to gather all activists, all advocates together, all churches together, to defeat this disease, this gun disease. And once we come together, and as I said, the ultimate goal is to get out the vote. But we gotta get together. We gotta come together and do this thing.
Well, we agree. We got to get together. We also have to do one more thing. We have to realize the nature of black people. Dr. Bishop Greg Fan just said it earlier. It's hard to keep us together. Joe Lowry taught me this right here. He said, Mosteller, he said, I've been out there since 1950s, 40s. He said, look, black people cannot remember an issue longer than 2 weeks. And you, as a leader, need to understand that. They're not going to stay on that issue more than 2 weeks.
Or keep it on their mind, for instance.
That's what I'm saying.
Keep it
so
on their mind.
our strategy has to deal with the people we're dealing with, which is their institutional memory only lasts. How long?
2 weeks. Well, listen, we don't have to cut that segment.
What we got to do is cut it, right?
Yeah, we got to cut that segment now, because we've gone long beyond our time. But James,
I'm not going to see you no more for about 4 weeks. You're going to be running this for about the next 4 weeks.
James, let me tell you something. James has said something that
Great.
he wants to do, and I think that we need to do. And of course, like I was just saying, is that earlier that we're going to have a forum. The South for the Ministers Alliance, we're having a forum, and we're going to be dealing with dementia and mental health. We're going to have Dr. Epps and her group dealing with mental health and dementia and mental health, and Sean Garvey from WAOK. He's going to be on. He does mental health space every Monday at 6 o'clock. This is an issue, and it's an issue for our community, but I think that one of the things as we get ready to close out, I have to say this, one of the things that we have to say is the power of the black church. And I did a message a few years ago. Is the black church still relevant today as it was on yesterday? And it comes back to this. The message of salvation, the message of repentance, the message of redemption is not being ministered in the church.
Right.
It's the message of greed. It's the message of selfish. It's the message of hatred. It's the message of all of these attributes, all these attributes of Satan. But they're being preached from the pulpit, and we're ambassadors for Satan and not ambassadors for Christ. Mm-hmm. So when we come back to being ambassador for Christ and not use him as a byline, and talk about Jesus, talk about Christ, talk about salvation, get into the message of what Paul talked about, and understand that it is about salvation.
It is.
It is about salvation.
Yeah.
It is where we're going to spend eternity.
Yeah.
And that is the message that we have to get back to. And the church can become powerful again. It will become relevant again. And young people will have some hope. They don't have any hope.
Nah, that's why they're killing themselves. That's one of the reasons.
They goes to what do some of that. They don't have any hope. They don't have anything to look forward to.
You know, Bishop, quickly let me say this. When we were standing in the midst of those people, and I'm telling you that it was crowded, and Queen said this. She said, this young lady just gravitated to me, and I said, Queen, what you don't understand, they reaching out for
help anyway.
They reaching out for help. So it's just like a magnet. Once you get close to them, they can feel your spirit. They know what to do. Right. That's why that young lady came to you. That was a young man standing in the crowd and said, I'm tired of guns. Looked like he about 16 years old. I'm not participating anymore. I'm tired of that. So the opportunity is there. We always have known that these kids, y'all call them gang members, I call them club members. They join these clubs because
Family.
they have a lack of
Family.
love in their home.
Yeah, no
You know,
family.
most of them are latchkey kids.
Yeah, no family.
You know.
Well, James, I hear what you're saying, but we're gonna have to close this.
Let me get one more thing in, Bishop.
But don't get too
10 seconds.
The two talking preachers in
10
there.
seconds.
Shannon, they done beat you today.
10 seconds.
Yeah.
I want to commend Brother James.
Right.
Because Dr. Jones and I were talking in the break, and we talked about leadership. And we agreed tangentially that only leaders are those who are doing something. Right here.
Right.
He's doing something. He ain't interested in talking to me about talk. He's got an idea about what he wants to do. He's working to do something. If each one of us get to doing, not talking about it, but doing what it is that God has already called us to do, then we'll have community again. Then we'll have hope again to some degree. And that seed will spread. But doing is the key to it all.
But James, do me for me as we get ready to do and get out of here. Should you give me your phone? I'll put your phone on with the information for people to get in touch with you.
Announce it right
Announce
now?
it. Yes, announce
Okay,
it.
my phone number is 678-973-7355. And as I tell people, you call me 24 hours, 7 days. I rarely sleep 2-3 hours a day in 10-15 minute increments. You call me, James Davenport will answer his phone. And as I tell people,
As you tell people this, give me your number one more time.
678-973-7355. And James Davenport, if he tell you he gonna do something, if you ain't got but 2 pennies left, bet it.
All right.
All right.
Well, let me just tell you something. We ain't betting and gambling on this program because this ain't nothing but what? Straight talk!
Want to be a guest on Straight Talk? Email Greg Van at FANN922@Comcast.net or call 404-308-0795. Join us again for another episode of Straight Talk with Shannon Jones and Greg Van, the Preacher Man.